Welcome. This is the Lifetime Cashflow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. This is where you'll learn strategies to help you achieve lifetime financial freedom through real estate investment. Your host, Riyad Khleif, has owned over 2,000 homes and apartments, and he brings experts in all aspects of real estate investment and management onto the show. Now, here's your host, Riyad Khleif.
Welcome to Lifetime Cashflow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Riyad Khleif, and I'm thrilled you're here. And I know you guys are really going to enjoy the two gentlemen we're interviewing today. I had done one of my free 30-minute phone calls with one of them and was so impressed with their work ethic and what they've done already at their young age. They're both in their 20s, and they're about to close on their first 24-unit deal. I mean, you guys, I know you've heard me interview people with a few hundred units to a few thousand units to tens of thousands of units. But people like these two gentlemen will relate to many of you much more because they're just really getting going in the multifamily space. They've been bitten by the multifamily bug. And I'm real excited to have them tell you their story because I was really impressed, and I think you will be as well. So their names are Borland and David Toupin. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks, Rod, for having us.
Absolutely. So, Dylan, let's start with you. Tell us how you got started in business in general and then in real estate. And make sure you tell people how old you were when you got started, because that kind of blew me away as well.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll try to keep it as short as possible, but I started at a very young age in business, just out of necessity. I realized that if I wanted to provide for myself, if I wanted to buy a car when I was 16, if I wanted to buy clothes, if I had to eat, quite frankly, I was the only person, kind of a lone wolf. I was the only person that was going to be able to do it for myself. My parents were divorced growing up, and my mom was working 2 jobs just to pay for the house. And so it was up to me. So I started at the age of 13 actually flipping cars. And the reason why I got into that was because my neighbor was always working on cars in his garage, and he'd fix one up, put on his lawn, and sell it. And I got into it not with the idea of wanting to fix and flip cars, but I got into it because I knew when I was 16, I didn't have money to pay a mechanic to fix my car when I eventually bought a car. So anyways, I got the car fixing bug, and I started going down the auctions, and we bought a car together, fixed it, flipped it. And from about the age of 13 to 17, I spent some time fixing and flipping cars. But for me, Rod, that wasn't enough because I had very specific income goals in mind, and I'd have to flip a lot of cars to get there. So I actually read a book on real estate investing when I was 17, and I said, that's it. That's what I want to do. That's the business that's going to get me to the income goals.
Do you remember what book it was?
It was actually Trump Real Estate 101.
I love it. I have all of Mr. President Trump's now books. Yeah, fantastic. All right, continue. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, so I read that book and I was just really inspired. I said, real estate, as far as I could tell, real estate was the only business where I could get to build the type of income that I had envisioned for myself and the lifestyle that I wanted for myself. And so I actually ended up buying my first property when I was 17, and I couldn't even legally buy it at the time. I had to have my girlfriend buy it because she was 18. But it was behind the house where I grew up, and this was 2006, Rod. And we renovated it and flipped it, and I did very, very well. But then shortly after that, the market crashed, as we all know. And I think that the Detroit market with the automotive industry got hit a little sooner than the rest of the nation. So I was quickly having to figure out then, now what do I do? So that's kind of a quick synopsis of
but
to where I was at.
Since then, talk about what you've done since then, because that's most impressive.
Yeah, so I've been investing now all in full time since 2006. I've been, 11 years already. My business, Rod, has really been primarily focused on residential fix and flips. And from about 2006 to 2010, while the market was declining and recovering, I had bought, my focus was on buying income rental properties. So I had accumulated actually 108 single family rental properties up until 2010. After 2010, to make a long story short, I ended up going through a divorce, and I had to liquidate those properties. And so I took about a year off from 2010, 2011 to kind of get my thoughts back together, jumped back into real estate full time, trying to recover from that personal hiccup I went in and focused on fix and flipping single families exclusively so I could keep my capital moving. I could rotate it about 3 times a year at 20 to 30% returns.
Okay.
So I got to a point very quickly where I was doing over 100 fix and flips properties a year from 2011 to just about November, well, not just about, exactly November 2016, where then we decided to move into the multifamily game, which is how we got introduced to you and your material as well.
Awesome.
So I've done a few things in between that time frame, a couple of one-offer opportunities, which I think you probably are aware of as well, but that's where we're at now.
No, that's awesome. And I, it's so funny. I can totally relate to starting to do business when you were 14. I lied about my age and got a job at Burger King so I could buy my first car, my 70 Roadrunner. I had this cool 70 Roadrunner with this pistol grip shifter, and it had a hood scoop. It was called an air grabber. You flick a switch and a hood scoop comes out of the hood electronically. Yeah, that was that's nice. That was awesome. But I had to go and work at Burger King and flip burgers for a couple of years.
So you weren't flipping cars, but you were flipping burgers.
No, exactly. No, so you're a lot smarter than I was. So okay, well, David, you're up. So tell us about your background and how you got started.
So I guess I kind of have a similar story. Starting at a young age, 13 years old, my parents told me. I've always been a huge car guy, kind of like, I guess, Dylan. I never got into flipping them, but, I knew when I turned 16, I wanted to buy a car. And my parents said, you bring us X amount of money and we'll match it up to like $3,000 or $4,000, and you can buy a car on your 16th birthday. And so I started a landscaping business. I didn't want to do what everyone else was doing. Everyone else was kind of doing, going to working at the fast food places or, working for minimum wage. I wanted to. Oh,
sure. You had to throw that in there after my story, didn't you? Nice.
That's brutal, man.
No, but I really, saw myself, doing something else. And I didn't really like working for other people necessarily. I like working for myself. So I started a landscaping business. And throughout high school, by the time I was 17 or 18, I had accumulated probably about $10,000 worth of equipment. 50 plus clients. I was mowing lawns, doing landscaping every week, and I accumulated quite a bit of money doing that. And I sold that off when I went to college. And then so then, since then, I my first 3 years in college, I actually went to initially go into the dental program. My dad's a dentist, so I thought I always wanted to be a dentist at that point. Quickly changed my mind. Decided business was for me. My junior year, I had done an internship in auditing. I then did one in investment banking and consulting. And in the meantime, while I was doing those, I had read a book. I'm sure almost all of your readers know it, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Of course.
And, it's cliche, but that book blew my mind, completely got me hooked on real estate. Funny story, you had, I believe, Eric Stark last week is what you aired.
Right.
His partner, Steve Mills, I had heard on Bigger Pockets quite a while ago, about a year ago. And Steve Mills had mentioned, he's from Royal Oak, Michigan, close to where we are. And he had said, go read Rich Dad, Poor Dad on the podcast. That's what got me into it. Steve Mills was actually a catalyst. Yes, that's funny you had his partner on the show. And Steve actually then became my first mentor. For a few months, he really mentored me and got me into real estate. Those guys are great. Steve and Eric, they do a great job.
Awesome.
So from there, I actually got out of my last internship and decided that working in the corporate world was not for me. I had some big job offers, and literally the day I got out of my last internship, I turned them all down. And I
think you wrote down you were offered like $80,000, which is pretty significant starting salary, and you turned it down.
For Michigan, Michigan, and I turned it down the day after I got out because I knew like Dylan, I had very specific income goals. And I knew I wasn't going to hit it by working for someone else. I knew that was only going to come by working for myself.
Good for you. I'm sure that was a challenging decision because, when you're facing that kind of salary in one hand, the bird in the hand versus, a dream and a goal.
Exactly.
That says a lot about, your goal setting and the power of you setting your own goals and realizing what you really wanted.
I know a lot of people are in that same scenario, and I'd say for me it was easy because I didn't really have much to lose. I don't have a ton of costs, expenses to live. I don't have a family to support. I know it's a different decision when you're at that point, but for me, it was kind of a no-brainer. If I take that leap now, I'm really not missing out on too much. I could always go back and maybe try for this.
So that's how you justified it, because you were like,
but it was never.
What?
But I had nothing to lose at the point. But
Right.
In my head, I was never going back. I never wanted to take that second option. My first and only option was to make it, and real estate was the thing. So
awesome. And I read here that you did your first wholesale deal. And made $12,000. And for those of you who don't know what wholesaling means, it's basically finding a deal and getting it under contract and then flipping the contract. So you made $12,000, which is a pretty respectable wholesale deal.
Yeah. So that was about within the first month of me declining those job offers and going out on my own in real estate. And within that time, I had met Dylan a few weeks in. And through a mutual friend, and I had heard about him and a lot of the cool things he'd been doing throughout the community. He's kind of a rock star as far as fix and flip goes in the single family community. So I had a meeting with him, latched onto him pretty quick, got in, he took me in under his wing, kind of in a mentor relationship.
I forced him.
He forced him.
Right. Good. Well,
So,
good. And I know you did some flips after that together with Dylan and
correct. Yeah. So
he got acclimated.
Yeah, so he brought me in under his wing, and a few weeks into coaching, Dylan actually kind of said, "Hey, you're not. you can tell it best. You say it best."
Well, yeah. So David originally sought me out to coach him because I do some coaching as well. I have a small amount of coaching clients that I work with, and I knew very quickly David was the exception to a lot of the rules, and I could tell that he was somebody who I needed to pull out of coaching pretty quickly and get him on board with me.
Oh wow!
Once I did that,
that's nice to hear that, right, David?
Once
Awesome.
I did that, he absolutely killed it, and he closed his first deal the first week. And did a deal a week after. Then he said I was done with the residential game. It's too small for me. And he's actually the reason. I had done 2 multifamily deals prior to meeting David, but I got very complacent in the residential business.
Sure. I can totally relate. I mean, totally. You get comfortable because it's so easy. I mean, when you become good at it, it's so easy. And
right.
For me, buying a house is like buying a pair of socks. It's just so simple.
Yeah.
And you're right. Complacent's a great word because that's the reason that I got my butt kicked because I didn't get out of single family as I was told to and get into multifamily in a bigger way. Good.
And David was really the catalyst for that. He helped me focus on multifamily 100%. That was back in November of this 2016. So
awesome. Yep. Awesome. Well, so let's talk about this first. Not first, but the deal that you've got on the table right now. It's, if I understand it correctly, it's 2 12 units.
Correct. Yep.
All right. So tell us how you sourced it and tell us about it.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. So we found actually both of them are through local multifamily brokers. And they're actually competitors, the 2 brokers. But one had listed one. I think Dylan found it online, and the other one I had a kind of a relationship beforehand, and he sent it to me. They're actually 2 blocks from each other on the same street.
Perfect.
And, yeah, they're great. And one is a 12 unit of all 1 bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
1 bedroom units, and the other one is all 2 bedroom units. And the great thing was we got them very similarly priced. But the one with 2 bedroom units had the same rents as the one with the 1 bedroom units. So we knew instantly that buy them at the same price, we can increase the 2 bedroom unit rents at least $100 a month each.
Yep.
Right. Is kind of poorly managed and
both definitely like you teach, Rod. Both value add opportunities. One of the units in particular, they're both on a street called Pardo, and like David had mentioned, they're 2 blocks down from each other. One of the units, the guy's owned it for like 48 years, and he hasn't raised the rents are like 100 to 150 below where they should be. I mean, he hasn't raised the rents on anybody, some people, in 18 years.
Wow.
So, but he's taken, immaculate care of the property. I mean, anytime there was even a little crack in the sidewalk, you'd be out there with a little caulk gun and fill the crack in. So
nice.
So very good. Both of them very good opportunities.
What caliber of an area? B area, C area, D area?
I'd say C plus.
Okay.
C plus area, yeah.
Yeah, it's in Metro Detroit area, and it's a nice little kind of what would you say, a blue collar kind of working area.
Yeah.
Well populated. Just outside of this area has a little downtown, so
it's not the hood. I mean, you hear stories about Detroit, a little hair raising. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The numbers. What are you paying, and what do you anticipate as far as returns? If that's something you can come off the cuff with.
Yeah. So I think what we shoot for anytime from here on out, when we're putting a deal together, is we mostly aim for what our investor's going to get, and then we look at our piece of the cut. So one of these we syndicated, and the other one we bought for ourselves. So the one we syndicated, we do kind of like an 8% preferred return, and then a split on the back end of that. I think it was, what was that, 80-20?
Yep, 80-20.
And we aim to get our investors at least 10 to 12% is what we shoot for from here going forward.
Right.
Okay.
And with these properties as well.
So like David had mentioned, both of these properties, one of them we bought for $567,000. One was $565,000. Okay. When we purchase the properties, what we look for is an overall 15% cash and cash return.
First year.
Obviously, and obviously it's leverage. So we'll usually model them out at a 70% or 75% LTV. Because we don't have very good, my business was always cash based for the last 10 years. We didn't have very good banking relationships, so I think we got hit harder than we should have on the banking terms. Okay. But they're amortized over 20 years, and we had a fight for that. Some banks wanted 15-year amortization and then 5% interest. So what that means is when we modeled the pro forma out on the back end, like David was mentioning, one I bought for myself, the other one we syndicated. On the syndication model, the investors are getting an 8% preferred,
right?
And then they're going to fall somewhere between 10 to 12%. Obviously, if everything goes right, we're very conservative on the pro forma. Both buildings are currently 100% occupied, but when we modeled it out and sold the one on a syndication model, we modeled that out at 92% occupancy and sold that to investors. And then, of course, we get, and I think your listeners are probably familiar with a portion of that back end, and our cut is a 20% split in addition to property management fees. And then we also charge 1%.
Acquisition fee? Did you do an acquisition fee as well?
Acquisition fee as well, 3%.
Acquisition fee and a 1% asset.
1% asset management fee yearly on gross income. I think we did 4% management fee on that one, property management fee, because we do have our own brokerage as well. And then 20% equity.
Equity. No, that's great. And there's lots of ways, guys, that you can structure these syndications. The way they did it was really more fee driven. In mine, I actually carved the equity 50-50 and just hardly take any fees. So there's lots of ways. I mean, the fee income is fantastic. When you're out there doing the due diligence and paying for third-party reports and spending your own money to evaluate these properties, those fees can really make a big difference. And 3 to 5% is the norm for acquisition fees. So you have no problem charging those, and that can be a significant chunk to help you find the next deal. So that's a great model. All right, fantastic.
You always talk about, and I know we might get into this later, but you always say, "Tell me about a deal where you got your butt kicked on." And initially, we went into these planning. We thought we were going to get an 80% LTV from the bank and a 30-year AM. We went in way, not nearly conservatively enough.
Let me ask you this: do you have a balloon?
Is it 5 year?
So it's a 5-year term.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because our business was cash based for years past, we didn't have those banking relationships, and we went in expecting to get much better terms, and that's why we had to adjust the equity on the back end.
Well, it's a little late for this conversation, but I do want to tell you guys, I would avoid 5-year balloons right now, okay?
Yeah.
And because when the contraction happens, and it's going to happen, if you're at the trough when it happens and your values have gone down, and even if you're cash flowing, you can't refinance, that is no fun. So keep that in mind. On future deals, I would push them out at least 7 years right now.
7 years.
Yeah.
But we agree. We felt with these properties, there's enough value to add.
Well, I think you're probably right, and you may not want to wait. You may not want to wait maybe in a year you refi and just get yourself terms that are a little more palatable, because I would be a little bit nervous. I mean, I'm not trying to scare you.
No, we understand completely. Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. But they sound like great. I mean, those rents sound fantastic. Now, let me ask you this: are you going to start pushing the rents? Are you going to start bringing them up?
Right away.
Okay, so what are you going to do to minimize vacancy? What is your plan? Do you have a plan for raising the rents? I mean, you're not just going to go in and raise the rents $100 and not do anything, I hope.
Correct.
No, okay. I think a majority of the tenants on both these properties are month to month. So I think it'll be pretty easy right away to go in and I think our goal is going to be to incrementally raise them. We're not going to raise them $150 if we can, if we can retain some tenants and maybe do it over a year or two, incrementally raise them.
Right.
That would be the best solution.
Well, that's one strategy. Another strategy is to go in and make some improvements and then go to just under market rent.
Yep.
But you obviously you want to be careful that you don't end up with a ton of vacancies. So that's always a give and take in this situation.
So our plan on the syndication, we raised an additional $25,000, I believe, to put right away. We're going to put that back into improving the building. It's not a huge. It's 12 units, so it's not a huge building. $25,000 will do quite a bit of damage on the common areas and update
exterior landscaping, balconies are going to get refinished.
Perfect. Yeah, if they see you making repairs, that makes it a whole lot easier to stomach. Particularly visible stuff, paint, landscaping, things of that nature, where they really see that you want to improve the property. It makes the rent raises much more palatable. Good.
Now, on the other side, we look for a value add on the other 12 unit. It's got this beautiful common space in it, and it kind of segues into the basement. One of the things that we were looking for to add value to that, and the bottom line we're going to add lockers. We're considering adding storage space because there's no storage space.
So you've got some extra room where you could put in cages or whatever?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
Perfect.
So we're going to put in 12 cages, and we were looking at the cost of that. I think it was $300 for a 5x5 cage, but we could boost the rent to $40 to $50 a month extra.
Wow.
So you can do the math. It pays for itself in a year.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And increases the NOI by like these are smaller units, but increases the NOI by $5,000 to $6,000 a year, which now that goes to, we bought it for $565. We sell it at an 8 cap here in the Michigan market. In 5 years, it's going to be $750,000, $800,000 property.
Absolutely.
Just by that small change alone.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So what's next for you guys? Before we started recording, you mentioned you've got some stuff. You've got some stuff in the hopper. Yep. What sorts of things are you looking at?
So for us, the biggest thing on getting these 12 units down is we're system. We like systems in this business. We're really big system guys. So
those of you listening, every business in the world is two things: people and systems. Yeah. So if you want to have any scale, if you want to make things happen like these guys are making them happen, you've got to establish systems. So fantastic.
So what was huge for us is really getting that syndication model down, the system for due diligence, the system for financing, and we wanted to start small and then scale.
So we have a goal, just more specifically over the next 5 years, to acquire $100 million in multifamily assets over the next 5 years. So we broke it down to $20 million a year. Now, we're not in a rush to get there because we don't want to make bad investment decisions, right?
Right.
But I think it's important to set that goal.
Sure.
So right now, going forward, like David had mentioned, these 12 units were more so training wheels for us to get those systems established, the syndication process, the raising the capital process, the management process. But we found out very quickly there's a lot of things we did wrong, right? Such as the 5-year term on the mortgage. But so going forward, though, we also realized our time and energy same amount of time and energy could be spent on bigger units with bigger profits, bigger returns. So we made a goal now to look at anything 80 units or above.
I see.
And so a lot
how
of
are you going to take that? How are you going to take that down? Are you going to bring in a sponsor, or are you going to be able to do it yourselves?
So that's a good question, Rod. So I have, just from being in the fix and flip business, I have a good amount of, I guess, what would you call it, financeability myself. So I think anything up to, like we're looking at a 96 unit now in Michigan, which is about a $4 million acquisition price. That's something that I could take on myself. But going forward, a couple of the other properties we have are much bigger than that. We're looking at a $20 million acquisition, a $50 million acquisition. Those are some of the properties we have in the hopper. And yes, we have sponsors lined up and equity people as well. So what we've also been doing during this process is David's kind of been working on the due diligence, but I've been working on aggressively lining up and having conversations and building relationships with not only sponsors, but also equity participants.
Sure, investors.
Well,
sure.
Yeah, so that they're ready to go when those opportunities come up.
So are you going to do individual syndications for each property, or are you going to do a fund, or what's your plan for raising equity?
Yeah, good question. So we're going to do it on a per property basis. I did, and I started in 2016, and I think you probably had this in your notes, Rod.
Mm-hmm.
I raised a fund in 2016. It was a $28 million fund. I raised it in 90 days, and I actually gave all the money back because we realized that model was not what we wanted to do. And in essence, I would become an employee in that scenario. And our goal with these investments is long-term ownership. So we have plans in place to cash out the equity investors and keep them for ourselves indefinitely.
So you're structuring these so you actually cash out your equity? They don't stay in with an equity piece?
Correct. Yeah. David and I want to own these assets for ourselves 100% at the end of the year or at the end of the term, which typically is a 5-year term.
So, so that's really only achievable if you have, a really good value add deal, as you know. Right?
Sure. If you've got
to pull them out or.
They've got to have the returns for that to make sense. Where they're really acting more as lenders. They're acting more as debt than. I mean, in a way. In a way. I mean, you could certainly, because their return will fluctuate. They're investors, but mine is a little different. My fund, and I'm doing it as a fund, and it's primarily for mobile home parks and smaller apartment buildings right now.
Yeah.
But my game plan is to refinance and get the investors their capital back, but they stay in the deal.
They stay in the deal,
right?
Yeah.
So
right. But I love your MO. I mean, that's a great way to do it. If you can find people to do that, that's a great way to do it.
Yep.
So good for you. Well, let's talk about management for a second. Now, I'm a big proponent in self-management, and I would say, and there are arguments both ways. If you're locked into the management, a lot of times that can take away from your acquisition energy.
Sure.
Are you guys planning on? You said you were going to charge a 4% management fee, so I'm assuming you are managing.
Correct. Yep, we're going to be managing everything here in-house.
Okay. Yep. And you'll be managing the managers, basically.
Managing the managers, absolutely.
So on that 24 unit, maybe you take one of the units and somebody gets half off their rent, and they're responsible to check on both buildings every day, set up some systems there to make sure that somebody is picking up the trash and taking care of it.
Common areas clean, pick up the trash. Yeah, absolutely. Correct.
Okay, fantastic. And I think one could do both buildings. But you've got to make sure, though, just from experience, that the other building doesn't become a stepchild, because sometimes it does. So how did you get the financing for those two deals? Did you just go to a local regional bank?
That was a good question. So, we started off with a referral from the seller's agent. And I said, okay, well, let's try that first. But we made a mistake because we didn't have a backup plan. We didn't approach other lenders. So with the first 30 days and our financing contingency went by, and the lender kept telling us, yep, they're going to get us good terms, 80-20 terms, you name it. At the end of the day, when 30 days passed and it got back from approval, the terms were horrendous. They were 70% LTV, 15-year amortization. It just killed our cash on cash return. So we that was the first mistake we made. So now we know we got to start developing relationships, but also be working multiple lenders on each deal.
And I will caution you on that. You want to be careful, particularly if you're working with brokers. If you work with a broker that goes to multiple lending facilities, you can get a bad reputation if you've got multiple brokers working at the same time. So it's really kind of you got to be very, very careful with that.
So you don't bank.
Yeah, but if you're direct to bank, then you're fine.
Yeah, we've gone direct to bank, and we've also been, I mean, I don't know if it's good or bad, but we've been fully transparent with the banks as well and told them, hey, we made a mistake, but now, just so you know, getting involved, working with us, we're working with 2 other people that are working on the same project as well, too. at least on these deals, because we had to catch up ground. We were 30
Oh,
days
sure.
behind.
No,
We
okay.
dropped
So
the
you
ball.
did that on those deals, and I understand that. I will tell you, if you go into a deal saying that, you're not going to be on the top of the stack. So I would not recommend that to any of you listening. But they have to be responsive, and there, there's a list of questions you need to ask when you get started, and make sure that you're responsive as well, that they get their loan package timely and. But okay.
Yeah. So now we've developed relationships with local banks here in particular, banks here native to Michigan, and we've gotten some pretty good relationships established.
Great. You take them to lunch, you go have coffee, you do all that.
Absolutely.
I mean, don't underestimate the human component here, because really they're people, and you don't think of them as institutions. You develop relationships. They see what you're made of. They see what kind of integrity you have, and those relationships can make you a lot of money. So good for you.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. So speak to the people that are listening that thinking about getting into this business that have not taken action. What would you tell that? What would you tell them? Dylan, you want to go first?
I'll go. I've got a very simple solution for that. So the best way to I get asked this question all the time because I coach people as well too, and they're very hesitant, especially people who may be considering leaving their job, right? And they got families and they've got health insurance and they've got benefits. Most of the time, like if I were to talk to somebody, I would say, hey, if you're in a position where you got 6 months saved up, just do it. The only way to jump in. This is. I jump.
By the way, those of you listening, we are actually on video because I'm putting these on YouTube now, and he saw me flinch when he said that, so he got responsive. So
I'm unique. I'm the kind of guy that I jump in. I take the boat out to the deep water, and I jump in and I figure it out. So
and I'm gonna come right back and say, don't do that. Okay. All right. In fact, what's today? Today, I've got anybody that's gotten my book is going to get an email, and the title of the email is "How to Buy Multifamily When You Have a Full-Time Job." And the premise of it is to keep the full-time job, at least until you've got some income coming in. But listen, I want to come back to you with another question, and both of you actually with another question. But before I do, David, what would you tell them?
Like anything, you have to take that first step. Most people, the biggest thing is taking the first step. They're scared to get into their first, whether if you're going to residential, your first wholesale deal, your first single family rental, your first fix and flip, even your first multifamily. I would say you learn so much just by doing it. Right. You're really holding yourself back by, I think you should educate yourself beforehand, but some people take it a little too far and they take a year, 2, 3. They take too long. You have to jump into it. And like you call them seminars, we just had our own seminar. He's been investing for 10 years. We just had our own seminar just doing these 24 units. And it's an awesome learning experience. You have to just jump into it and you'll
just do it. Like Nike says, just do it. Okay.
Some people get what we call analysis paralysis, and they want to figure everything out ahead of time. And that's all I'm saying is just, at some point you just have to jump in and you'll figure it out as you go.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And take a look at what I sent out on being able to do this while you have a full-time job, because I really believe in full respect. What you did takes stones, and I'm impressed. And there are people listening that will do that. Yeah. And I will tell you, it's the scary way to do it. But if you're self-motivated and you can make it happen, then fine, go make it happen. But I will also tell you that it's easier to get financing if you've got W-2 income. Sure. It's you can save more money if you've got W-2 income. And frankly, you're typically working 40 hours a week, and there's a whole lot more than 40 hours in every week. So, I've interviewed people that have made mega million fortunes on the side doing this business.
You got your 9 to 5, and then your 5 to 9.
That's right. And your weekends. And your weekends. That's right. So, I want to ask you guys both a question, because you guys really, you remind me a lot of myself and getting started early. And I know what motivated me when I was young. And it wasn't just the car. It's deeper than that. So, Dylan, I want you to start. What do you think is your driver? What made you start when you were 13 years old, 14 years old, 15 years old, and really make things happen? What do you think it was?
That's a good question, because when I first started, and it's transformed dramatically since, but growing up, I was never a materialistic person. Though I had a very specific income goal in mind. I didn't have it in mind with material things. I'm actually a very frugal person. So I didn't want
Okay.
the fancy cars and the watches and the jewelry and the houses. I wanted to make enough income so that if I wanted to go, I like to travel the world when I was really young.
Okay.
And so if I wanted to travel, I could just travel and not have to worry about anything. So up until about 25, so 13 to 25, that was kind of my motivation, was to hit that specific income goal so that I had the freedom to travel, so that I had the freedom to not have to worry about bills. Also, I didn't like debt, and so I wanted to have a very debt-free lifestyle. And so that's why I wanted to hit that income goal, is to have that flexibility to be able to travel the world, experience the world at a young age before I had a family, and then also to be able to live a debt-free lifestyle. So that's what was important to me. At 25, though, my life kind of changed, and I actually, now I'm 30, just turned 30.
Oh, you're 30. Okay. I thought you were still in your 20s. Okay. I misstated. Okay.
30.
Oh, congratulations. All right.
I had my first child 2 years ago.
Oh,
so
nice.
he just turned 2 in February. And, that's my biggest why now.
Sure.
You think you know love until you have a child.
Oh, right.
It's unbelievable. So just anytime I think about him, I'd do anything for him.
Sure.
One of the apartment buildings that I'm actually buying, I'm naming after him, kind of as something that I always wanted to do. So,
Awesome.
But he's my big why now, because I want him to grow up and see that anything's possible. And if you put your mind to it, you can achieve it. And the best role model for him is going to be myself, leading by example. So I would say that's my biggest motivator right now.
Okay. How about you, David?
Yeah, so I mentioned this actually the first time I met Dylan. We talk about goals a lot. I write my goals down every day, and one thing I always write,
Good for you.
and always been a big part of my life, is philanthropy. And I know that's huge for you, Rod. We talked about it, a little bit on your call. You help out with the Tiny Hands Foundation, I think it's called. I don't know if you have your is that your philanthropy or philanthropic?
Yes. Yeah. No, that's my foundation.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, so that's a huge motivator for me. I always write down, I wanna run one of the top 3 biggest philanthropic organizations in the world. That's my goal. I want to be up there with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Ford Foundation.
Love
so
it.
that's really what drives me every day. Are
you giving back now?
I do a little bit. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
My family and I, we work with organizations around Detroit, and I do give a little bit when I can. I give as much as.
No, that's fantastic. That ties into Tony Robbins says people will achieve to be happy. Why not just happily achieve?
Yeah, right.
And the same thing applies to philanthropy. I mean, there's no reason you can't give
do it
back.
The whole way,
you can't be giving back right now. It's a journey. It's not a destination. So I just wanted to give. Well, that's awesome, guys. Those were both great. And for me, honestly, it was material things. I wanted the Lamborghini. I wanted the the Ferrari, the Corvette, all these things, and I think it was I immigrated when I was 6 and got picked on at school, and I think it was part of it, psychological, showing people I'm good enough. I think that was a mental thing I was going through. But it's funny, people have different drivers, and I always like to ask what the deep driver is, and certainly when you have children, that changes everything. So you said you got a seminar on this deal. What was it? The financing? Is that what's the seminar, or was there anything else?
Oh boy, how much time do you have?
Let's hear it. Just because it'll probably add value to the listeners, so they don't make the same mistake. So what happened?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. So we went in with our deal modeled out, investor splits, the syndication model a certain way, based on the financing terms being at specific rates, specific amortization, specific loan to value. And when we didn't hit that, it changed a lot of things. We had to adjust the equity split.
We had to reapproach the investors.
We had to
and let them know.
investors. We had, there's a lot of things that come into play there. So
how much did you raise on that syndication for that deal?
$183,000 for that deal.
Okay, not bad. How many investors?
7, including myself.
Okay,
I have a small piece of it.
Did you do a 506B then, the non-accredited?
506C.
So accredited.
Investors.
So they're accredited.
Oh,
okay, good. Okay. All right. Yeah. How did you find the investors?
That's a good question. So when I launched 2016 looking to raise a hedge fund, I thought that's the direction I wanted to go with. And I actually soft taught myself. I didn't know anything about raising capital. I had to fight. I didn't have every dollar I made for myself. I mean, I did it the hard way.
Sure.
So I didn't have any, it was almost embarrassing for me to go and start looking to raise capital. And I had to get over that ego really is what it was, right? So I self-taught myself. I bought the top 5 books on raising capital. I attended one seminar. The state of Michigan was holding a securities and exchange seminar, an in-depth seminar, which I attended, got to meet with some of the top attorneys in the state. And then so I started learning how to raise capital. And I did it through what we call, and you're probably familiar with, multifamily, single-family offices, institutional investors. And
you're talking about family offices.
Family offices. Yep.
So you raised it from family offices?
From family offices and high net worth.
Because those are small. That's a small raise from a family office. Family office. I mean, it's, for those of you that don't know what a family office is, they're typically hundreds of millions of dollars under management for a particular family, a celebrity or a great business person, sometimes even billions of dollars. And so,
so I raised the hedge fund from family offices. In particular.
Got it.
Okay, so that's how I got started with developing those relationships.
I thought we were talking about the $180,000. That seemed way too small for family office.
Yeah. So no. Okay. So then when I went to the 100, and some of those people in that raise were high net worth individuals. Mostly doctors, attorneys, things like that. So then when I decided to not do that and give that money back, we transitioned a lot of those people into, hey, this is what we're going to do going forward. We're going to do a per property syndication model, and who's still interested in it.
Okay, and great. So you'd already done a lot of the work. Okay, got it.
So I reached out to a lot of those same people. Now, a good amount of them dropped off and said, nah, or family offices is too small. Those guys say, I'm not going to look at anything $3 million or less. Right. So, so the $183,000 was raised. I had a $50,000 chunk in myself, and then the remainder was raised through doctors, attorneys, other real estate investors.
Okay, good.
Local.
Good. Okay. Yeah. Any books that you're reading right now that you love? Business related, real estate related?
I am reading Never Split the Difference. It's by
that's a great negotiation book. Yeah.
Awesome book.
Love it.
So,
good.
Love this book. I just read I believe it's called Trump Strategies for Real Estate by George Ross. It's Trump's attorney, and he was the executive vice president of the Trump Organization. Awesome book on how to. It's mainly taking what he did for his bigger deals and applying them to smaller ones, but there's a lot of good tidbits in there and
awesome
bits of information.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, and so I'm a big book reader myself. Right now, though, I'm focused 100%. I just started a course from Darren Hardy. I don't know if you're reading.
Sure, Success Magazine.
Yeah.
Sure.
And he has a course which is called Insane Productivity, and it's a 12-week course just on how to really just bunker down and be insanely productive. And so right now I'm fully immersed in that and a lot of tips and tricks and things to do to eliminate distractions and just maximize productivity on a daily basis.
Fantastic.
So,
Fantastic.
Along with your book as well.
And of course,
thank you.
No, we showed Rod. Remember we showed you.
That's right. Yeah, that's awesome. It'd be great if I could get off my butt and get it printed. Yeah.
Awesome.
Actually, I've been waiting for some testimonials, and they just came in, so it's about to go on Amazon. So that's exciting. And I'm actually doing coaching as well, so I'm excited about that. I got certified as a high performance coach, and that coupled with all the time with Tony Robbins, I think I can add value there, and of course do real estate coaching as well. So, but guys, hey, listen, I really appreciate you being on the show. It's been a lot of fun, and you definitely added value and hopefully inspired some of the people that haven't taken action yet to what's possible. And we are definitely going to stay in touch and follow each other's careers.
Well, thank you, Rod. And more importantly, we appreciate everything you do for the community. So thank you.
Yeah,
absolutely. My pleasure, guys. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe and then take a moment to visit iTunes and leave a 5-star rating and review. For more resources to connect with us further, please visit our website at lifetimecashflowpodcast.com. Tune in next week for our next show.